When someone disrespects a king, they might lose their head. When someone disrespects a weak man, nothing happens. But when you disrespect someone who truly understands power, that's when things get interesting. Machiavelli knew exactly how the powerful should respond to disrespect, and it's not what you think. Picture this. It's Renaissance Italy, 1513. Niccolò Machiavelli sits in exile, his political career destroyed, writing what would become the most controversial guide to power ever written, The Prince. This wasn't just theory. Machiavelli had watched emperors rise and fall. He'd seen how one moment of disrespect could topple kingdoms, and how a calculated response could cement a ruler's authority for decades. But here's what's fascinating. His insights weren't just for kings and princes. They're psychological principles that apply to anyone who wants to understand how power really works. In boardrooms, in politics, in everyday relationships. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most critical tests of power. How do you respond when someone disrespects you? Because how you handle that moment reveals whether you truly have power or whether you're just pretending. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at conflict the same way again. Let's start with Machiavelli's fundamental insight. In the game of power, respect isn't given, it's taken and maintained. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel." What does this mean? It means people evaluate your power based on what they observe, not what you claim. When someone disrespects you publicly, they're not just being rude, they're conducting an experiment. They're testing whether you're truly powerful or just wearing a mask of authority, and everyone is watching to see what happens next. Think of respect like a currency in the economy of power. Every interaction is a transaction. When someone disrespects you and faces no consequences, they've just devalued your currency. And once that happens, others notice. They start treating you differently. Your authority erodes. But here's the twist that most people miss. Overreacting is just as dangerous as underreacting. The way you respond to disrespect is a high-wire act. Too soft, and you're seen as weak. Too aggressive, and you're seen as insecure and out of control. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He studied the rulers who lasted and those who didn't, and he discovered a pattern, a formula that separated the truly powerful from the pretenders. The first response is what most people are taught to do. Just ignore it. Be the bigger person. Don't let them get to you. This sounds mature, doesn't it? Turn the other cheek. Rise above it. But in the realm of power, this is often a fatal mistake. Let me tell you about King Louis XII of France. When the Duke of Valentinois, Cesare Borgia, committed acts that directly challenged Louis's authority in Italy, Louis chose to ignore them, thinking it wasn't worth the conflict. He wanted to appear magnanimous, above petty disputes. What happened? Within months, every minor noble in Italy realized Louis wouldn't defend his interests. His entire power structure in the region collapsed. Machiavelli watched this happen in real time and wrote about it extensively. The problem with ignoring disrespect is that silence is interpreted as consent. In a power vacuum, people don't think, "Oh, he's being mature." They think, he's either weak or he doesn't care about his reputation. Modern example? Look at companies that ignore public criticism. Remember when United Airlines violently removed a passenger and their initial response was weak and defensive? Their stock dropped, public outrage exploded, and they lost billions in market value. Silence and weakness cost them dearly. But, and this is crucial, Machiavelli wasn't saying you should respond to every slight. He distinguished between disrespect that matters and noise that doesn't. If a powerless person insults you privately, ignoring it might be wise. But if someone challenges your authority publicly, especially in front of those whose respect you need, that's different. The test is simple. Will ignoring this make me appear weak to people who matter? If yes, ignoring it is not an option. Now let's look at the opposite extreme. The emotional explosion. You've seen this. Someone gets disrespected and they lose control. Yelling, threats, public meltdowns. It feels powerful in the moment. It feels like you're asserting dominance. But Machiavelli would tell you, this is the response of someone who has already lost. Why? Because anger reveals that you've been wounded. It shows that the other person got under your skin. And more importantly, it demonstrates that you're not in control of the situation or yourself. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But I'd add, the first method for estimating someone's power is to see what makes them lose control." Think about Emperor Commodus from Roman history. When senators or citizens disrespected him, he would fly into violent rages, executing people on the spot, creating spectacles of his anger. Did this make people respect him? No. They feared him temporarily, but they also conspired against him. He was assassinated at 31 years old. Emotional reactions do something dangerous. They make you predictable. Once people know they can provoke you into losing control, they have power over you. They can manipulate you by pushing your buttons. Modern example? Look at social media. How many celebrities, politicians, and business leaders have destroyed their reputations by responding emotionally to criticism? Elon Musk's Twitter battles, for instance, have sometimes undermined his own company's stock prices. Each emotional reaction chips away at the perception of control. Here's what happens psychologically. When you react with immediate anger, observers don't see strength. They see insecurity. They think, why is he so bothered? A truly powerful person wouldn't be this affected. Machiavelli observed that great rulers might be ruthless, but they were never reactive. Their cruelty when it came was calculated, not emotional. So if ignoring makes you look weak and exploding makes you look insecure, what's the third option? This is where Machiavelli's genius shines. The calculated response. Here's the formula. Step 1. Strategic patience. When disrespected, the Machiavellian doesn't react immediately. There's a pause. This pause does two things. First, it demonstrates that you're in control of your emotions. Second, it makes the other person uncertain. They don't know what's coming, and uncertainty is terrifying. Machiavelli tells the story of Cesare Borgia, who he actually admired. When certain commanders betrayed Borgia, he didn't rush into battle. Instead, he smiled, invited them to negotiations, made them believe they were forgiven. Then at the perfect moment, he had them executed. The message was clear. You can never know when consequences will come, but they will come. Step 2. Make it proportional and public. The response must fit the crime, and it must be visible to those who witness the disrespect. If someone challenges you in a meeting, you don't destroy their career, but you do make sure in that same meeting or shortly after that everyone sees your authority reasserted. Maybe you calmly dismantle their argument. Maybe you make a decision that goes against their wishes. The key is that witnesses see the natural order restored. Machiavelli warned, injuries ought to be done all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. In other words, if you're going to act, do it decisively and completely. Half measures just prolong the conflict and make you look weak. Step 3. Control the narrative. This is perhaps the most sophisticated part. The powerful don't just respond to disrespect, they frame what happened. After handling the situation, the Machiavellian makes sure others understand why the action was taken. It's not personal vendetta, even if it is. It's about principles, standards, or the greater good. Example. When Steve Jobs was asked to return to Apple in 1997, one of the first things he did was remove board members and executives who had undermined him years earlier. But he didn't frame it as revenge. He framed it as removing people who don't align with Apple's vision for the future. Same action, but controlled narrative. Step 4. Return to normalcy. Here's what separates the truly powerful from the petty. After the response, they move on completely. No gloating, no continued hostility, no dwelling on it. Why? Because the powerful act from a position of strength, not wounded ego. The message is, you were handled appropriately, and now you're not even worth thinking about anymore. Machiavelli observed that the best rulers could be ruthless one day and then gracious the next. This unpredictability, combined with clear boundaries, created a kind of respect mixed with healthy fear. Let's bring this into today's world, because these principles apply everywhere. In business, when a competitor publicly attacks your company or product, the Machiavellian response isn't to engage in a Twitter war. It's to let your next product launch speak for you, or to strategically partner with someone that makes your competitor irrelevant. Jeff Bezos rarely responds to public criticism, but Amazon's actions speak volumes. In the workplace, imagine a colleague undermines you in a meeting. The weak response is to let it slide and hope people noticed it was unfair. The emotional response is to get defensive or argue. The Machiavellian response? You acknowledge their point calmly, then later in the meeting, you present something that demonstrates your competence so clearly that everyone sees the contrast. You've reasserted authority without seeming petty. In personal relationships, even in friendships or family, these principles apply. Someone repeatedly disrespects boundaries. The weak response is to keep complaining. The emotional response is a dramatic confrontation. The calculated response is to calmly reduce your investment in the relationship until they notice and modify their behavior, or you peacefully exit. In politics, watch how successful politicians handle attacks. The amateurs get defensive and emotional. The professionals either ignore attacks from irrelevant opponents or respond once, devastatingly, then move on. Think of Obama's response to Trump's birther claims. He mostly ignored them for years, then released his birth certificate and humiliated Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, all while maintaining composure. The pattern is always the same. Assess if response is needed, pause, act proportionally and strategically, control the narrative, move forward. But let's go deeper. Why does the Machiavellian approach work psychologically? It works because it demonstrates three qualities that humans instinctively recognize as markers of true power. First, self-control. The ability to not be controlled by your emotions shows mastery over yourself, which suggests you can master situations and other people. Second, strategic thinking. The pause and calculated response show that you're playing a longer game. You're not reactive, you're proactive. This makes you dangerous and unpredictable. Third, confidence. Only someone truly secure in their power can respond proportionally without overcompensating. Overreactions reveal insecurity. Machiavelli understood that power is as much about perception as reality. People follow those who seem to be in control because they want to be on the winning side. The moment you appear out of control, people start hedging their bets. So let's bring this home. Machiavelli's lesson on disrespect isn't about being cruel or manipulative. It's about understanding human nature and power dynamics. When someone disrespects you, you have three choices. Ignore it and risk looking weak. React emotionally and prove you're not in control. Or respond strategically, with patience, proportionality, and purpose. The truly powerful understand that every interaction is a message. How you handle disrespect tells the world who you really are. But here's the final insight that Machiavelli would want you to understand. The goal isn't to respond to every slight. The goal is to build such a reputation for proportional, inevitable consequences that people rarely disrespect you in the first place. Prevention through reputation is more powerful than any response. So the next time someone tests you, remember, don't ignore it if it matters. Don't explode because you're hurt. Pause, think, act strategically, then move on like it never happened. Because that's what powerful people do. If this video changed how you think about power and respect, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy, psychology, and human nature. Drop a comment below. How do you handle disrespect? Let's discuss. Until next time, stay strategic, stay strong, and remember, true power is quiet, calculated, and inevitable.